Zimbabwe's top court unanimously confirms President Emerson Mnangagwa's disputed July 30th election victory. U.S. President Donald Trump's tweet about looking into large-scale killing of white South African farmers draws an angry response from the South African government. And in our Music Makers segment, the spotlight is on Nigerian-born international singer-songwriter Ada. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidui. You are in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. As the nation anxiously awaited the outcome, Zimbabwean President Emerson Mnangagwa scored a big win Friday when the nation's constitutional court confirmed his disputed July 30th presidential election victory, dismissing an opposition challenge that had held up his inauguration. Opposition presidential candidate Nelson Chamisa had filed suit claiming his reported 44% share of the vote, which put him behind Mnangagwa's slim 50.8% victory, was inaccurate and that he won. But in a unanimous ruling of the 9 judges on the country's top court, Chief Justice Luke Malaba said opposition leader Nelson Chamisa had failed to prove allegations of fraud during the presidential vote.
Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa is duly declared the winner of the presidential elections held on the 3rd of July, 2018.
Mnangagwa now faces the challenge of persuading the international community that the army crackdown and lapses in the election process will not derail his promise of reforms needed to fix the economy. Joining me now with more on Friday's Zimbabwe's Supreme Court ruling is VOA Zimbabwe reporter Blessing Zulu. Blessing, welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you so much, Esther. The pleasure is mine.
Well, the ruling is final. Mnangagwa won the election. Any reaction from President Mnangagwa himself so far?
Yes, President Mnangagwa has addressed the nation on his Twitter account and also on the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, saying that he's open to meeting with opposition leader Nelson Chamisa, and he says he wants the nation to move forward, and he's saying that this decision is final and no one can appeal. Therefore, what is left is for politicians to find each other and take the nation forward.
Now, that's a very quick reaction because it was just hours ago. What about his inauguration plan? Do we know when that will be?
I spoke to the ruling ZANU-PF party secretary for administration, Paul Mangwana, a few minutes ago, and he says, as per constitution, the inauguration will go ahead at the National Sports Stadium on Sunday. So it's 48 hours after this ruling as per the country's constitution. That
is pretty fast. How about the opposition? Has Nelson Chamisa or his camp reacted to this ruling?
I spoke to his spokesperson, Dr. Nkululeko Sibanda, who says that they are rejecting the Constitutional Court ruling. And I asked him about also what Mr. Chamisa's response to the olive branch extended by President Mnangagwa, and he said it was too early to comment on that. They are just not happy that the Constitutional Court ruled in Mr. Mnangagwa's favor.
But what next? What can they do next? Is there any appeal? This is final, isn't it?
This is the final court. I don't think they have any legal leg to stand on, but maybe they will take to the streets. But the government had already deployed the army and the police. So the situation in most cities is very tense.
Now, former President Robert Mugabe had indicated that he will meet with whoever is going to be the president. Is he likely to meet his former deputy?
Now it's looking less likely because Mr. Mnangagwa, in an interview some 2 weeks ago, was saying that he wants to take some farms for President Robert Mugabe because he was not happy that he had begged Mr. Chamisa during the elections. So it's less likely.
So are we likely to see any riots? Like you said before, there is a heavy police and military presence in Harare and elsewhere in the country. Do we expect any riots?
It's going to be very difficult, really, for the opposition, because unlike on the 1st of August, when the opposition took to the streets and resulting in 6 people being killed allegedly by the army, this time it appears the state is prepared. But usually in the evening, in the high-density areas where the majority of the poor live, that's where riots are likely to occur. But talking to the police spokesperson, Assistant Commissioner Cherit Charamba, she's saying that they are ready and they are hoping that there won't be any violence.
Generally, very briefly, do Zimbabweans feel that the future is going to be hopeful?
It's very difficult. The nation is divided, and also it was a tall order for Mr. Chamisa to have this victory overturned. Remember, it's only Kenya in Africa that managed to have the presidential elections annulled, and 3 other countries in the world, that is Maldives, Austria, and Ukraine. So you only have 4 cases where presidential elections were annulled. This was going to be difficult for the opposition in Zimbabwe.
Blessing, thank you very much for coming back on Africa 54. We'll keep an eye to see how Zimbabwe's politics continues to develop. Blessing Zulu is a VOA reporter. Now, staying in Zimbabwe, the National Liberation War Veterans Association is urging the government to rename Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport, saying the former president was no longer fit to have the airport named after him. The airport was renamed last year before Mugabe was forced out of power in a de facto military coup. As part of the festivities surrounding the name change, Mugabe unveiled a plaque at the airport bearing his name. But some citizens feel a name change is a waste of time.
We are at a very critical moment, at a very critical time when the economy is in shambles and someone is calling for a change of an airport name. Really, is that rational? It's nonsense. It's foolish.
To simply change the name of the airport for reasons that are personal, that is personal political differences, I think is not good for the country.
The veterans group says visitors to the country should not be greeted by the name associated with dictatorship, oppression and repression. The war veterans have submitted a petition to the government officials calling for the name change, but it's unclear if they have a replacement name for the airport. Now to Uganda, where tension is still high after days of bloodshed, arrests and protests over treason charges brought against opposition lawmakers, including on Thursday against musician Robert Kyagulanyi, known as Bobi Wine. Authorities say the lawmakers and rowdy youth threatened President Yoweri Museveni's life by throwing stones at his car. Analysts say the clashes show any real opposition to the 32-year rule of Museveni will now be met with force. Halima Thumani reports from Kampala.
Tensions are rising in Uganda after a week of clashes between Uganda's government and supporters of its youthful opposition. Authorities on Thursday dropped charges of illegal possession of firearms against lawmaker Robert Kyagulanyi, known as Bobi Wine, for a more serious charge, treason. Political analyst Bernard Sabiti says the government's hard line against the opposition is exposing President Yoweri Museveni for what he is.
At his core, he's a tyrant. That's how he came into power. And what this has shown is that when he's seriously challenged, he's actually going to bring out the most ugly traits of his character as a leader. And I think that in a way is good because it shows Ugandans that if they really want to remove him, the cost is going to be enormously high.
For the last week, Ugandan security forces have been hitting protesters with tear gas, beatings and gunfire that killed at least 1 person and wounded several others. The protesters want authorities to release 5 opposition lawmakers who are charged with treason for allegedly threatening Museveni's life by pelting his car with stones. Ugandan security forces blame rowdy youth for the violence and say they are not backing down.
It is the duty of our security forces to defend the country, its sovereignty and territorial integrity. At the core of sovereignty is the presidency, and by necessary implication, the person of the president and his security and safety. This reckless trend has no place in our democracy and cannot be tolerated.
At Kampala's Catholic Cathedral Wednesday, supporters prayed for the opposition lawmakers.
We need to fight together as youth. If you attack us, we need to come together like ants. Ants are too small, tiny, but they can lift a big object.
The tensions erupted earlier this month during an election in the Arua district as the opposition and Museveni campaigned in support of rival candidates. As a crowd attacked Museveni's motorcade, police shot dead the driver of Chaguranyi, who was arrested and, according to supporters, later tortured. The Ugandan president denied any torture took place, calling the allegations fake news. Halima Athmani for VOA News, Kampala.
The World Health Organization says a doctor has become the first probable Ebola case in one of the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's high insecurity zones, which are threatened by militia violence and are hard to access. The doctor living in Oicha town in North Kivu has been rehospitalized with Ebola symptoms after his wife was confirmed as having the disease when she traveled to the nearby city of Beni, according to Dr. Peter Salama, the World Health Organization's Deputy Director General of Emergency Operations. The DRC's health ministry says since the outbreak erupted on August 1st, 103 confirmed and probable cases of Ebola have been identified in North Kivu and Ituri provinces, including 63 deaths. So far, 97 of the doctor's contacts who may have been exposed to the virus have been identified, and vaccinations have begun in the town. Dr. Salama details the doctor's case.
We received this week confirmation of a case that had travelled from Oicha to Beni, and further epidemiological work has been done that shows an additional probable case and an additional suspected case in Oicha. The index case may turn out to be, not confirmed yet, may turn out to be a doctor from Oicha who was hospitalized in Oicha and presumably may have infected his wife. Well, Oicha is not a red zone from a security perspective itself. The road to Oicha is a red zone. So for the first time, really, we have a confirmed case and contacts really in an area of very high insecurity in this response. It really was the problem we were anticipating and the problem at the same time that we were dreading.
More than 2,900 people have been vaccinated against Ebola in the DRC since the outbreak began. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Still ahead on Africa 54, Nigerian singer, songwriter Ada. But first, a look at Friday's headlines.
So for the first time, really, we have a confirmed case and contacts really in an area of very high insecurity in this response.
C'est une mission importante, ce voyage, parce que non seulement il va nous permettre de conforter, de consolider les relations de coopération.
The U.S. State Department says U.S. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo have discussed South Africa's land reform. The president asked Pompeo to investigate reports that the South African government is expropriating land owned by white farmers without compensation. VOA's Ladza Hawk reports Pretoria has quickly reacted to Trump's tweet citing, quote, large-scale killing of farmers.
The South African land reforms are intended to address the historical injustices from the colonial times when black farmers were not allowed to own or rent farms. More than 70% of agricultural land remains in the hands of white farmers. The post-apartheid government has promised to rectify these injustices with a series of measures, including land redistribution and expropriation of farms without compensation. A recent Fox television report on the issue prompted Trump to say in a tweet Thursday that he asked his Secretary of State to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers. South African officials and political leaders were quick to respond.
There is no white genocide here. It's an absolute rubbish to say there is white genocide. There is black genocide in the USA.
Some have accused Trump of trying to stir racial conflict in South Africa. Others have said that he's trying to draw away attention from his own troubles. But some South Africans welcomed Trump's tweet.
We know now what the catastrophic course is that our government is taking, so we need the international community to send out a warning to say, it is not in the interest of the country, it's not in the interest of the country's economy. Rethink your position, and I think Mr. Trump's tweet was a great start.
For many, the reform brings to mind neighboring Zimbabwe, where land expropriation and persecution of white farmers led to a sharp decline of agriculture and subsequent economic woes. Pressed on the issue at a news media briefing Thursday, the State Department spokesperson said the situation in South Africa cannot be compared to Zimbabwe.
It may be easy for some to try to draw a comparison, but there are very big differences. In Zimbabwe, we saw the government there squash civil society, shut down the media from doing their jobs and reporting, and destroyed an independent judiciary, and we have not seen that happen in South Africa.
But she said the expropriation of land without compensation could send South Africa down the wrong path.
We continue to encourage a peaceful and transparent public debate about what we consider to be a very important issue, and the South Africans certainly do as well.
The State Department official warned that poorly implemented land policies could be detrimental to political, social, and economic issues in South Africa. Zlarica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
And welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. South African business mogul and global speaker Vusi Thembekwayo is on a mission to incubate and launch 300 black-owned businesses by 2030. Through his My Growth Fund, an enterprise development initiative, Thembekwayo has invested 5 million rands to try and fill a gap in entrepreneurship where he says black people are disadvantaged. Among black South Africans, the majority population stands at 32%. Experts say entrepreneurs are central to bridging Africa's widening inequality gap, but most governments on the continent are not doing enough to help them. Next up, this car is fitted with an SMS-based tracking application created by a developer in Limbe, Western Cameroon. Zuo Bruno launched the application called Zoomed last year during an internet shutdown in the troubled English-speaking region. Zoomed relies on a GPS chip to monitor a car's movement without the internet. The app uses code sent via text message to locate or immobilize a car. The app features ignition alert, immobilization, as well as an SOS alarm that sends distress calls to nearby police stations and emergency services. So far, close to 50 Cameroonian companies have signed up, and Bruno has expanded his business into Ghana and Nigeria. And finally, sleep capsules may sound futuristic, but Saudi Arabia is currently looking at a prototype to house millions of pilgrims. During the annual Hajj pilgrimage, worshippers live in tents at the three main sites. A single tent can hold up to 10 people who sleep on mattresses or beds that are in close quarters without much privacy or a place to store their valuables. The doors to the futuristic pods are unlocked with a key card, and the sleeping units offer an isolated environment for pilgrims camping over the 5 days of Hajj. Air is recycled through pumps located inside the temperature-controlled capsule, and it even has a small foldable table for reading. And that's what's trending today. Now, Ada Ogochukwu Ehi is a chemical engineering graduate, but wearing a white coat is not where her heart is. Ogochukwu, who is known by her stage name Ada, is living her dream as a singer, songwriter, recording and performing artist. She started her music career at the age of 10 and has climbed up the ladder through her songs and music videos. She joins me in the studio to tell us more about her musical career. Ada, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, at the age of 10, I'm thinking most girls, especially in Africa, were just beginning to learn how to read and write. What was the inspiration behind you starting music this early?
Oh, well, I was born into a musical family, and was very active in church quite early. And I've always had a love for music. Yeah, so I think it came naturally. I love music. I had a good exposure to music, good time. Yeah, and then 10 years, my friend, then she was a child star. So she was quite known in Nigeria. And I jumped on the bandwagon, backup singer.
Now,
gladly.
But 10 years of age, you're singing, you're thinking about the music, but then again, you get away from music, you go into engineering, and you graduate with, at Lagos University. So what really brought you back to music? Is it fame? Is it money? What happened?
Music never really left me, while I was in school. They say about you have to get an education. My father is an engineer. My mom was a psychologist and a nutritionist. And they both had masters and were well-read. So it was natural. You just have to go to school. So I thought I was going to be a doctor. And then I thought it was too many botanical and biological names to cram. And then I thought engineering was easy. You just know the formula and you're good to go. But music never left me.
No statistics, but more of your music is gospel. But let's take a listen to your video and see what you are up to in this song.
What can't you do, Jesus? Let's go!
You look amazing.
Thank you.
And you're a crowd puller. How are you doing on the music chart in Nigeria? Are you on iTunes and all that?
Oh yeah. Okay, how am I doing? I'm doing good. My last album was #1 on iTunes. It debuted at #1 a few hours after release.
What's the name Nigeria? What's the name
Future
of it?
Now. And a lot of #1 in a lot of countries and top 10 in several countries, including European countries.
You know, one of the things I've had when people heard you're coming to VOA and you're in the US, you're in the DC area, is when are you going to perform here in Washington?
Oh, Washington. Yes. Well, we have to work on that. But I'm performing on Sunday at Maryland. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm live in concert.
What are you going to be? How did you bring your band and people from Nigeria to sing along with you?
Yeah, I brought a few people.
So what are you working on next? What is your next big thing?
More music.
More music.
More people. Capture more people. Yes. Yeah, more music, more content, yeah.
Now, you're so young, and I'm just wondering whether people come up, you know, to you, younger people, younger girls, even, you know, younger boys who want to get into music. What do you tell them? How do they start off?
Yeah, you know, you must know that that's what you want to do, because, you know, honestly, the success rate isn't that good, you know? Like, you could have a whole village and just one person, you know, makes it in music. So you must be sure that that's what you want to do. You're not doing it because somebody else is doing it, or because you think you could. It's a means to an end, and you've got to pay the price. You've got to work for it, you know? You must have the skills. You must develop the skills. You must put time into it. You must have passion for it. You must understand it. You must be patient too, you know? So it takes a lot.
You know, you can say that simply, but a lot of people can't even sing. They would like to. I can't. You know, I have to tell you, I can't sing. I would like to sing, but I can't.
I'm sure you can, maybe if you put in more time.
I need to put in more time.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to wrap up and play more of your videos.
Right.
So let me say, Ada, thank you again for coming to Africa 54.
I'm so honored to be here.
And to learn more about Ada Ogochukwu Ehi and her music, visit her Facebook page. So we're going to leave you with Ada's music video, Jesus. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A slope can describe a surface or area that is not level. If something is slippery, it is hard to stand on.
Slippery slope.
It sounds as if Jonathan and Anna will fall down.
So, Jake came into the office late again.
He told me he has been drinking every night this week.